Hi there guys, in this brief video tutorial I will go over on how you can set up a Squirrel debugger for your own Gothic 2 online server that was added as a feature in the recent up-to-date version of Digital. Before we start, we need to download the recent server, so let's do that now. We need to accept our terms of our agreements, and now we just need to download the server from the Mega. Okay. Once we do that, we just need to unzip this directory somewhere, for example on the desktop. And now, if you don't have the Visual Studio Code, you should install it, and when you do that, just open up the Visual Studio Code directly in this directory. Now, we need to find the config XML file and make sure that the debug tag contains this configuration that was highlighted by me right now. This is a client port that will be used to connect to the client to debug it, and this will be a server port. Now, once we have this, if you don't have this configuration for some reason, you can look it up our official documentation. When you open up the documentation, to go to the multiplayer section and the debugger. You can find all of the necessary information and configuration steps that needs to be done. But since we already have this, we also need to install the Visual Studio Code extension. In future, it will be possible to install the extension directly from the Visual Studio Code marketplace, but for now, we need to download it directly from this official repository. It is called sqdbg-vs. We need to go over the releases page and download this file. Once we do that, we just need to install this extension, and we can do it, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere here. Let's see, install from the VSIX, and we just need to pick this file. Okay, let's see if the extension was installed. Yes, it is installed. Now, what else we need to do? We only are one step from the actually being able to debug our server. So now we need to go over the run on debug section, and now we need to generate new launch.json file. For some reason it doesn't work. Okay, now it works. Now we need to pick up the Squirrel debugger, and now we need to make sure that our configuration here, the ports configuration, match the configuration from the config.xml file. And I will also switch the order in which those configurations are declared. It's just for cosmetic purposes. So the client is using by default 289.71 port, and the server is using 289.72. Okay, but also as a last step for this configuration, we need to include this option, cwd equals workspace directory. I will go explain it why we need to include it here. Okay, we can optionally add it for the server, but we don't have to. But it's a good practice to do that. Basically, this setups the current working directory for the server and the client. For the client, this is required because the client will not be able to properly propagate our server paths and convert them to relative paths, and convert those relative paths to absolute paths, and so on. That's why we need to include it for the client. For the server, it should be optional, but it's also a good practice to include this option, because why not? And now let's try to debug something. Let's go over I don't know, maybe here, and maybe let's create a set timer function. And let's put in here some kind of message. And now we just need to place a breakpoint and launch the server. We also need to agree to some firewall configurations. And now, in order to connect to our server and start debugging it, we need to click here, run on debug, pick the proper configuration and start debugging. I forgot to do one more thing. We also need to set debug flag to true. Now it should work. Let's see. Yes, it works. And as you can see, we are directly in the debugger. We have a call stack here. We can also open up the disassembly view that will show us the bytecode for the scripts. It's very useful for low-level optimizations for the scripts, or maybe better understanding how things are working under the hood. We can also take a look at the current this member, which is a root table in this case. We can see all of the members that are set here and their values. We can also modify some variables. So maybe I should modify this script a little bit. Let's create a local variable called pi that will be set to 3.14. And now let's try to restart the server and attach it one more time. And as you can see, we have our pi here. Maybe let's modify the code a little bit more. Like this. And now, just to prove a point, as you can see, now it prints 3.14. But when we connect and modify this variable here and press continue here, it will print 3.15. Of course, the value will be reset back to 3.14 because it's just a natural things in the execution. But as you can see, the debugger is very powerful and gives you a lot of options. I will show you one more thing that is very useful. Let's, for example, create a new function called onSecond, for example, and let's move the code here. And also, let's create another function called print message. Let's put the code here. Let's put the execution of this function here, and let's also do something like this. Now, let me restart the server, attach the debugger one more time, put a breakpoint here, and now we can step into the function. And as you can see, the call stack has also been updated and we can navigate it through it, which is very useful because now we can see exactly what function was called and use it for advantages to debug the project easier. That's all, guys. I hope this video will be helpful to you because I suspect that many people will be asking how you can set up the debugger. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Bye, guys.